one incident with the, I don't want to say what it is, but the one incident where there was a violation of the rabies protocol. I don't know why you want to go more into that. Another time when we went there on a well-being check, I believe he let us check out the property.
And the property checked out at that time?
No, I believe, I remember we had issues. I don't even remember exactly. I had to have to look back at my cases. But I remember he had over the limit of dogs, and we requested he get us rabies certificates for them.
Was there anything specific to show that Mr. LeVake was active in any way in a kennel on that particular property?
Objection.
I don't understand the question.
Mr. LeVake is an owner of the property. He's responsible for what goes on his property.
It's certainly a valid question.
I don't understand the question, Mr. Tilly.
You can ask the question. What was the question?
May I have a read that, please?
Question, the property checked out at that time? Officer, no. I believe I remember we had issues. I don't remember exactly. I have to look back at my cases, but I remember he had over the limit of dogs. And we were requesting he get us rabies certificates for that. Mr. Tobin, question, was there anything specific to show that Mr. LeVake was active in any way in a kennel on that particular property?
Before you answer the question, how are you defining a kennel? Because we have a zoning regulation, once you go past 3 dogs, you need a kennel. A kennel,
I understand.
So how, when you ask her a kennel, do you mean as it pertains to the zoning ordinance or to the buying and selling of dogs? What do you mean by the question? Can you clarify that?
Well, first I'm asking the question with regard to a kennel.
So, but define what you mean by kennel, based on a zoning ordinance or a buying and selling of dogs?
Your ordinance talks about what constitutes a kennel.
Correct.
So I'm asking her with respect to that.
Okay, that's what I want to clarify.
I don't know how to answer your question. I know Mr. and Mrs. LeVake are married. I don't know how to answer the question.
Okay. Do you have anything specific other than the fact that there was a question of a dog bite, which Mr. LeVake called in to you? Is that correct?
I'd have to look at my notes. I don't.
Okay. Other than that instance, were there any other instances pertaining to Mr. LeVake with regard to a kennel?
I know that I've knocked on the door and Mr. LeVake has answered and showed me around the property.
Okay.
And from recently, the last, I want to say 5 years, I haven't really had much cooperation with anybody at the property. So I would have to leave a hang tag and maybe get a call back.
But did you have any conversations with Mr. LeVake regarding what was occurring on the property?
That one time that I went and he showed me the property, at that time I have. I probably had as much conversation with Mr. LeVake than I had with Mrs. LeVake.
Okay. Let's try again. Mr. LeVake called you regarding a dog bite.
Correct.
Okay. So you had a conversation with him at that time and you told him that there might be a violation, correct? Or that there was a violation.
The dog that he shot, we'd have to go dig up for the rabies protocol. I believe that was a conversation.
Okay? But that had nothing to do with operation of a kennel. Is that correct?
That's a violation of the rabies protocol.
Okay. Other than that conversation, and other than him letting you in to see the house on one occasion when you asked, did you have any cooperation or conversation with Mr. LeVake?
Other than those 2 times, I believe that's the only time I've spoken to Mr. LeVake.
Thank you. No further questions.
May I follow up on one thing? You brought it up. Did Mr. LeVake shoot a dog and bury it on his property?
Yes.
Is that what happened? Okay. When did that happen?
I don't know, I want to say over 10 years ago.
Okay.
Okay, if nobody else has any further questions, I'd like you to take a seat, please.
Thank you.
I'd like to call the associate planner, Mr. Wagner.
Is this normal? I don't.
No, I don't think you can call him.
I certainly can, and when we were here the last time, he testified, and I specifically asked for an opportunity to cross-examine, and it was granted.
When did I testify?
I think he presented his case.
First of all, I have some questions that are very important to be asked of Mr. Wagner. He's presented a case. I have a right to question him with regard to some of the presentations he's made. He testified, he put in the documents.
Yeah, but that's what,
It's his job.
he's the lawyer.
No, it's not his job. He's the associate planner. He's not the town solicitor.
I understand that, but he is presenting the case for the violation.
I understand that, and I have a right to cross-examine him on what he does and what he did. He's the one that drew up the NOV.
This seems very odd to me, and I will object for the record, but if you desire to go forward, I will answer the questions.
I will,
Mr. Tobin is right in one capacity. I am not employed by the town in my former capacity as an advocate. So,
Okay, you can limit your questions to the notice of violation, the issuance of the notice of violation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wagner, you're,
okay, I guess I gotta swear him in, right?
Yeah.
Give your full name and address for the record, please,
Brian Wagner, 6 North Hillview, Narragansett, Rhode Island.
and your present occupation.
I am employed by the town of Coventry as the associate planner.
Okay, you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Employed. Now, when this incident happened, were you employed by the town of Coventry?
Yes, I was. I started my employment January 3rd of 2017.
so you've been the associate planner for a little bit more than a year.
Correct.
Have you been appointed to any other positions in the town of Coventry?
No.
In my answer to the complaint, the first item in the answer was a lack of jurisdiction. Is that correct?
The document says what the document says.
That's what it says, right?
That's what the document says.
Okay. And you're an attorney, correct?
Correct.
Objection. He's not employed by an attorney.
I understand that.
Okay, so we don't expect legal opinions from Mr. Wagner.
Well, he's given the NOV. I have a right to question him with regard to it.
I would like to discuss this with the two of you outside right now. I would like to take a brief recess.
Yes. Take a break, please, sir.
No, last year she had the flu shot and she got the flu, so she didn't want to get it this year. So guess what, she's having her second flu.
Did you realize?
Let's wait here down further. Congratulations.
Okay, then tell, I don't understand something. They win the biggest, what it was.
and they trash their city. They lose an athletic event and they trash their city. If there's ever an event where they don't trash their city, okay.
But you have to understand where like the stadiums are.
I went to the old Venice Stadium.
You get that stadium? Yeah. The yellow seats, you used to sit in the yellow seats.
First, didn't answer any.
Is it this one right here?
Okay, so feedback.
There it goes.
You're from Philadelphia. But you're from Ireland.
I didn't expect anything but.
That's all. Let's not pretend women are most of the things that are over, but maybe you match their husbands, so you can't. We'll let that one.
No. Can I approach?
Holidays. How you been?
Paul did. Hi, Judge, how are you?
Here's a problem.
In the garage.
Please go on. I want you to get that.
You work in your office?
I wish I had you in here.
You know who's got that horse? My Uncle Jimmy has that here.
I wish I had you.
In my house. Just like yours. And a lot of it too. He's married to a
You guys do lunch, but I work in the mornings from Mondays and Fridays. I work from 10:30 to 6:30. Tuesday, Thursday, I work 7:30. I came to breakfast.
So, anyways, my work,
I gotta run the place.
stands at that fence.
Let's not be done.
No trespassing. Basically, that they replaced.
Take care of it.
No, because it's the appeal. Here.
Just have a couple more questions. Are you a building inspector in the town?
Okay, we're gonna
Oh, sorry.
reconvene after our recess here. Please continue.
Are you a building inspector in the town?
No, I'm not.
Have you been appointed to the position of enforcement officer of the Coventry zoning ordinance?
Part of my duties as associate planner and interim planner at the time of the issuance of the notice of violation, I serve as the zoning administrator for the town.
Isn't it a fact that Kerry Kowalski is in fact appointed as assistant building inspector and to administer and enforce the provisions of the town of Coventry zoning ordinance?
I don't know.
I'll show you a letter.
Okay.
Take a look at that. That indicates that she is the zoning enforcement officer, isn't it?
It says what it says.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to offer this as an exhibit.
I guess that's true.
This is, this
you have a
This is for
copy of that from your
identification
friend?
purposes.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Is this number 2, Mr. Tobin?
It
Is
is.
your number 2?
Number 2.
Okay.
That's all I have with respect to questioning of this witness. However, I do have some documents I want to present to the board relating to the town charter.
Mr. Tobin, are you going to, I didn't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry. Are you going to be doing a final argument?
Yes.
Putting together your case, so why don't we have those as part of your final argument? I think they address the law in this case, correct? Yes?
That's correct.
Okay, so I
just-
think, are you resting at this point?
I have a question on this document we just got.
I'm sorry?
I have a question on this. This document we just got regarding April 28, 2016. Mr. Wagner was started in 2017, that's after the date of this. Wouldn't his appointment supersede this?
No, because his appointment, he indicated his appointment was as the associate planner.
Mr. Tobin, are you testifying as to facts at this point?
No, he's asked me a question.
Right,
I'm just
so-
answering his question.
But isn't it possible that they share duties? Some of the same duties and responsibilities?
I don't know. Right now, the only evidence we have is that the associate planner presented the case tonight, that he's assumed some duties, but he hasn't been appointed to it, because I asked him if he was appointed to it.
And is this evidence to support item number 1 in your appeal? Is that what this is?
That's number 1.
All right, so that's what this is for,
That's part
to
of it.
prove lack of
That's part of
jurisdiction. Okay, all right.
I have a question. In reading this notice, it says that Carrie L. Karwoski is appointed an assistant building inspector. That to me indicates that perhaps there's more than one. She wasn't appointed the assistant building inspector. I know it's semantics, but just
Okay.
weighing in
Well, this
on that.
It's the lease.
It looks like it's could be one of many, or one of more than.
One thing, he's just offered this for identification. You don't have to admit this in full. And one thing to notice about this is that it's not under any certification as a true and accurate record like we did with the DEM records. We didn't allow the incidents reports because we didn't have that same certification. So you do not have to allow this as a full exhibit, and therefore do not have to rely on it for the factual. Mr. Tobin could have asked Mr. Waters to come in and testify if he wished to, but he did not. Instead, he's offering a document for the truth of the matter asserted, which is hearsay, for this board to consider. So I would recommend that this not be admitted as full.
Not my objection. All right, there's 3 documents. I'll rest first, and then I'd like the opportunity to argue.
Okay, Brian, do you have anything further you looked at?
No, but if I'm gonna be,
Yeah.
if I'm
He
if
goes
I'm gonna be
second.
seeing a bunch of new documents for the first time tonight as part of Mr. Tobin's legal case, I'm gonna need some time to respond to that.
I understand. That makes sense. Now,
You don't have to accept final arguments tonight. You can ask that the parties provide memorandums of law if you wish.
we could do that, but what, I'm gonna be myself. Let's get right down to Mr. Tobin. What do we want to accomplish here? Why are we here?
I'll give you these documents, I'll make it perfectly clear in my summation. You'll see exactly where I'm going. I have documents relating to the ordinance regarding the jurisdiction portion of the municipal court ordinance. That's the first one. I have another document.
Can you speak into a microphone, please?
I'm sorry.
Did you say municipal court ordinance?
Yes, I did. I have another document relating to the state law regarding the municipal court for the town of Coventry. And I have a third document relating to the charter, which is, by the way, certified. Which is regarding the charter, dealing with the jurisdiction of the municipal court. The item that you have before you, let me wait for you again.
Oh, they're long, so they're not coming in as exhibits.
May it please the board, we have here a notice of violation that under our ordinance requires it to be filed by the building inspector or the zoning enforcement officer, not the associate planner, as was done in this particular case. If you look at exhibit number, the town's exhibit 1, it's signed by Brian Wagner as associate planner, not as the zoning enforcement officer, and not as the building inspector.
Before we go further, can I just get clarification? When did Jacob Peabody leave? The date he left? Because we had shared duties at that point. People were filling in the roles on it. So do we know when Jacob left?
It was February of 2016.
So we do not have a zoning officer.
To have a building inspector.
There wasn't,
We had Matthew, didn't we?
no.
At the time of the violation, did we have a zoning officer?
Which violation?
The one that we're talking about tonight, the one that's being appealed. The one that's being assessed as to whether or not it was lack of jurisdiction to serve this violation.
So I am part-time zoning enforcement, and I have been out before this particular incident with Officer Lacombe with regard to the special use that took place before this.
But we don't have a zoning officer. So the role's been taken on by different positions. I don't know if it's been officially taken on, or I don't know the legal ramification of this, but Mr. Wagner has been filling in some of the roles. He's been working with his board in some of those roles.
The zoning ordinance, page 2-18, Article 2, Article 210, Section 132 defines zoning enforcement officer as the person charged with enforcing this ordinance. I believe enforcing the zoning ordinance is part of my job duties as associate planner.
Okay. All right. Mr. Tobin, please continue with your final. I would just like to get right straightforward with this.
First of all,
Mr. Tobin, is there any way that you can provide a brief or a memo on the jurisdiction question and just speak to the facts tonight that have been presented?
I'd like to speak to the procedure that was used tonight I'll be glad to provide a memo, but I believe I'm going to be giving you the same information in a memo that I can give you tonight.
I think it would be more useful for the board if it was in a memorandum as opposed to just because you're throwing a lot at them right now.
Well, I'd like to put it on the record, if I may.
What's the pleasure of the
I don't even know where you're coming from, Mr. Tobin.
I might have a chance yet, that's why.
Okay, all right, let represent what you're trying to solve and what you're trying to present.
There are two issues I believe are dispositive of this case. Number one, that it's required that the zoning enforcement officer or the building inspector, under our zoning ordinance, file a notice of violation. In this particular case, even if he was acting as the zoning enforcement officer, he didn't sign it that way, okay? And then he didn't sign it as the building inspector or assistant building inspector. And that's required under the zoning ordinance. That's the first issue.
All right, so you
It's
don't,
required that it needs to be signed that way?
Yes,
by a zoning enforcement officer, and you're saying the assistant planner is not formally the zoning enforcement.
he's never been formally appointed as the zoning enforcement officer. Never.
So you're saying the assistant planner and Kerry was never appointed the zoning enforcement officer?
Kerry was.
No, she was appointed, if this is true, the town building official. Says nothing about a zoning enforcement
You said
officer.
also a building inspector could. You're going from the...
That's under the zoning ordinance.
All right, I'm gonna come, Brian, what's your...
Let me,
Well, I would
finish my argument.
I just want to get to that one.
Well, first of all, I would point out that as of the date that this notice of violation was issued, I was essentially planning director. I was the only planner in the department, in a supervisory role of the zoning enforcement officer and the other people in the office.
Okay, so as a planning director, a zoning enforcement officer will report directly to you.
Correct.
So therefore, you were taking on duties as a supervisor.
Correct.
Okay. Attorney, counsel, or...
Yeah, I just want to, I have a lot of stuff from Mr. Tobin, but I think the controlling document here is the zoning ordinance. And the zoning ordinance defines the zoning enforcement officer as the person charged with enforcing this ordinance. And if he was in charge of the department at the time, he was
That's
acting in his
okay.
capacity.
Go ahead, Mr. Tobin.
The second point is the three documents I just handed you. One is the state law pertaining to the municipal court, setting up a municipal court and confer upon the court original jurisdiction. Okay? The second one, you'll see a two-page document, and it's section 1810, where it says jurisdiction. It says, the municipal court shall have original jurisdiction to hear and determine causes involving violations of the following: any ordinance of the town, and then it goes on to minimum housing. And then the third item is the statute, or the ordinance rather, involving the municipal court. And again, it uses the term original jurisdiction. Now there's a difference between jurisdiction and original jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is the right to hear a case. Anybody, any court, board, etc., may have the right to hear a case, but only original jurisdiction is in the municipal court.
So you're saying this doesn't even belong in front of
It doesn't belong in front of you, for the two reasons I cited. One is it should be at the municipal.
You brought the appeal to this body.
Yeah.
No, you brought the matter to this body, and the only way I could appeal it is to this board.
You
the only way I could go. I have no other appeal. In fact, you spelled it out. You spelled it out in your notice of violation where the appeal lies.
Why didn't you object at that time to say that doesn't apply here?
I did, I said lack of jurisdiction.
Tonight you said that.
I'm sorry?
No,
It's original.
No,
That
it's,
was my appeal.
Okay, this was dated back in September.
Yes,
Okay.
that was the appeal, that was the reason I put it in the appeal, because you didn't have jurisdiction to hear the case. At least not in the first instance.
But this is a zoning violation.
Right.
It's a town ordinance. The municipal court has,
So
it says any ordinance of the town.
So you're contesting that the zoning board does not have jurisdiction in zoning appeals?
Because of the type of case this is being a kennel license, if I'm interpreting this here, that the ruling on this belongs either to the council or to the municipal court. Is that what you're telling me?
No, it's not to the
No, it's
council.
not the council.
It's not to the council, it's to the municipal court. And in fact, it says original jurisdiction in all three of the documents I just handed you.
So you're
One
not
is the state law.
appealing, so technically you're not appealing the zoning application or enforcement. You're saying it should go directly to the municipal court. Which, okay.
I'm appealing
no, I,
the notice of violation. I'm appealing the notice of violation that was issued because you don't have jurisdiction to hear it.
it's a violation of the zoning.
Well, that's his opinion. He's saying this belongs to the municipal court. The problem we have here is, it's definitely a zoning violation, all right? A license is issued by the council, well, it's actually not.
No, it's
anymore.
not.
No, it's not anymore, you're correct.
They have to come before us
So
for a special use
therefore,
permit.
if the license is not issued by the council, I don't believe it is a municipal court jurisdiction.
This is taken, the notice of violation was taken under a section of your zoning ordinance. And the jurisdiction of the municipal court, they have original jurisdiction to hear and determine causes involving violations of the following. Any ordinance of the town. The zoning ordinance is an ordinance of the town. There's no getting around it.
But why did they come to us for a special use permit? You're appealing the denial,
No, I'm not appealing the
I mean-
denial.
Violation.
the violation, but they came to us for a special use permit. They weren't granted a special use permit. They're in violation of that by having, and now you're saying we don't have jurisdiction?
You don't have jurisdiction to hear the case originally. The municipal court is the only one that has the jurisdiction, original
The
jurisdiction.
kennel license, you're saying we didn't have
No,
jurisdiction?
No,
no, I'm not saying anything about
I'm
it.
saying we can't search the appeals board.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Counselor, what you're basically saying is, if we take someone to task, it's gotta go to municipal court. We can't do it. That's what you're
That's what I'm saying.
that's your
It's
argument.
in the wrong place.
Okay, that makes it a whole lot easier for me to understand.
Yeah,
So would that apply, in your opinion, to any zoning appeal?
The thing, but
No, well, it could be. Not any zoning appeal, because certain matters are in
Not
violation.
appeals, I'm talking about, we tasked them, we were gonna find them, take them to task with violating the law. You're saying we don't have a right to violate them, it's gotta go before the judge.
Right, because the original jurisdiction, as spelled out here, if it just said jurisdiction, you could have what's called concurrent jurisdiction. You can have it in front of the zoning board, or you can have it in front of the municipal court. But this isn't concurrent jurisdiction, it says original jurisdiction.
okay, what I would like to see, right,